Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Laura.
I'm Krista.
And I'm Kayla.
We are back in the pod lab
Woohoo.
recording, and we just realized that we've been talking for an hour and not recorded anything.
Killing it.
You always have stuff to catch up on, okay? Even though we all talk in multiple different group messages all the time.
That is true. So we're going to get right to it. And this case is unlike one that we've covered before. I'm interested to hear what you guys think.
I'm intrigued.
Or if you've heard it before. And it happens in the 90s, which we love the 90s.
Yes, we do.
Yep. All right. Should we dive right in?
Let's go.
Yep. Let's do it.
In the northeast corner of Indianapolis, just off of Pendleton Pike, you'll find a stretch of road that could belong to anywhere in America. A mix of gas stations, chain restaurants, dry cleaners, and strip malls that haven't changed much since the early 90s, except maybe the paint. And tucked into one of those strip malls with its fluorescent lights humming and its shelves stacked with buy one, get one sandals and canvas sneakers, sat a Payless shoe source, which rest in peace, Payless.
I miss Payless.
We used to go there all the time.
I saw Forever
good.
21 is closing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's wild.
It's sad.
There's still famous footwear,
True.
occasionally, in some places.
This happened on a Wednesday, just another midweek shift. Nothing special on the calendar, no major sale to prep for. The spring air still had a bite to it, and the Indiana sky, gray, undecided, pressed down on the city like a half-hearted sigh. Inside the store, Robin Flauter was working alone. She'd been with Payless for a little while. At 26, she had a lot going for her. She was sharp, reliable, easy to talk to. The kind of person who remembered the size you'd mentioned the last time you came in. She wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but she listened. Customers liked her. Her coworkers respected her. She had that magnetic calm about her. She wasn't dreaming of running the place forever. Payless wasn't really her end game, but it was a job that paid the bills while she figured out what came next. Friends would say she was thoughtful. She always had a card ready for someone's birthday, the kind of friend who remembered the little things. She had a quick smile and an even quicker laugh, and she carried herself with the quiet confidence that makes people feel safe. It was just past 1:30. The store was nearly empty. I mean, midday, Wednesdays, it usually was. The air smelled freshly of new rubber soles and the cheap leather of discount dress shoes. The bell above the front door jingled and someone stepped inside. Just another customer, or so it seemed. A man, alone. He didn't look out of place, maybe a little unremarkable. Not overdressed, not dirty, just someone wandering in, maybe looking for something on clearance. There was no struggle, no shouts, no signs of panic. And just like that, without any warning, without a single reason that anyone could understand, Robin was shot and killed. A single bullet to the back of the head from a Uzi-style .22 caliber pistol. She never saw it coming. No one did. The cash register had been opened, but whether he took anything meaningful or not was never clear. The drawer was left slightly ajar, the scene eerily intact. Nothing else appeared to be disturbed. No signs of forced entry. Of course, the store was open, middle of the day. No frenzied looting, just silence and stillness. The kind of stillness that feels unnatural and wrong. Customers discovered her later. They'd walked in expecting to browse for a pair of heels or sandals, only to find something so far removed from the world of buy one, get one, that it would haunt them forever. Police arrived, yellow tape stretched across the parking lot. Shoppers watched from behind windshields, and reporters scribbled into notepads with furrowed brows. Indianapolis homicide detective Mike Crook is among the first on the scene, and he notes a spent shell casing from a .22 caliber firearm. But at this point, just a tragic homicide. Police had little to go on. A body in a back room and a cash register that was short a few bucks. Maybe at most 100. Was it robbery that turned deadly? A disgruntled customer? Or maybe something else? With no immediate leads, this case threatened to become just another unsolved killing in a big city. There was no reason to suspect that maybe it was just the beginning of some kind of journey.
Oh, no.
Ooh.
That doesn't sound good. Mike, are we covering a serial killer this time?
Jenna made a face.
I know.
Listeners, you can't see it, but Jenna's making faces.
No, I'm not. I'm calm.
Okay, sure.
Who would kill a young woman working alone in a Payless? Who walks in on a random afternoon and just kills someone? None of it made sense. There was
Serial killer. Sorry.
There was no bad blood, no history, no motive. Just a name, a face, and a life gone. And
Sad.
it's really
It is
sad.
sad.
Sorry. That was sad. I
Yeah.
said that too quiet at first.
It is really sad, though, because there's no reason. It's
Yeah.
just senseless, you know?
Especially where you say nothing was really stolen.
Mm-hmm.
Like that seems so random.
Yeah. And just the middle of a
Middle of the day.
Wednesday, yep. And, in that moment, all anyone thought was how senseless, just like we're thinking. How cruel. How random. The lead detective on the scene had seen his fair share of homicides. Not so many that he was numb to them, but enough to recognize the ones that didn't fit the usual pattern. And this one itched. He stood just inside the front doors of Payless, arms crossed, rocking ever so slightly on his heels, eyes narrowing at the pristine rows of untouched shoes, pumps, flats, sandals, running shoes, loafers, lined up neatly like nothing had happened. No broken glass, no overturned chairs, not even a smear of blood anywhere except where she'd fallen. Robin was found in the back storage room, still in her Payless vest. Her hands hadn't even gone up. Her body hadn't shifted in self-defense. One shot, execution style. No signs of a struggle. Robbery, one of the uniforms said. But the detective didn't answer. He just stared at the register drawer. Open, but not emptied. The bills were askew, sure, but nothing about it screamed urgency. It was like the killer had opened the drawer out of routine, not desperation. A crime of opportunity? Maybe. A disgruntled boyfriend or customer? They would check, of course. But what nagged at him was how quiet it had all been, how fast. No mess, no chaos. Like someone walked in with a single purpose, executed it cleanly, and left before anyone noticed.
It's just wild that it took a while for someone to find her in the middle of a mall.
A strip mall.
Oh, okay. So it's not.
Not like inside,
Okay.
like the indoor malls.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking,
How does
How
he
does
get
that-
out?
yeah, well,
Mhm.
and also, how does no one else hear a gunshot?
Right. I mean,
That
even
makes more
so,
sense.
there are still businesses on both sides.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
And no one heard anything.
This was the kind of thing you'd expect from someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Still, he scribbled targeted with a question mark in the corner of his notepad. He underlined it, then he shrugged. Because that was the problem with scenes like this. Too clean meant too little to go on. Robin's coworkers were devastated. Friends and family, inconsolable. She hadn't been in any kind of trouble. She didn't hang with the wrong crowd. She wasn't the type to make enemies. Everyone said the same thing. She was the last person you would expect this to happen to. And that, the detective knew, was often the truest thing anyone could say after a murder. But this case, it would get filed just like the others. They'd canvass, they'd dig into any surveillance they could find, talk to sketch artists if they could, wait for tips. because at the time, there was no reason, none at all, to believe that Robin was anything more than a tragic, isolated case. An unspeakable loss, yes, but just one. Wichita, Kansas isn't a town that demands much from the spotlight. It's a place where people know your name at the gas station. The cashier at Kroger asks how your mom's doing. And if you go to a restaurant more than once, they start memorizing your order. It's quiet, predictable, a bit stubborn in the best Midwestern way. And nestled on the east side of town, tucked between a carpet store and a florist, was a small, warm boutique called La Bride d'Elegance. The kind of place you maybe could easily miss if you weren't looking for it. But if you were, you'd never forget it. The windows were soft with tulle and lace, mannequins gently posed in sequined gowns that glowed beneath fluorescent lighting. The front door chimed when it opened, and the moment you stepped inside, you were met with a peaceful hush, the kind of calm only satin and slow afternoons can create. The owner, Patricia Makers, was just 32 years old, but she carried herself like she'd been in business for decades. She had a soft laugh and a calm presence, the kind that made nervous brides feel like they were in good hands. Patricia wasn't flashy, she wasn't loud, she just listened, which made her a local favorite. She didn't run the shop alone, though. One of her workers, Patricia Smith, yes, two Patricias, affectionately known as Patty to just about everyone, was 23 and sweet in that effortless corn-fed.
Hey, why do we have Robin and Patty are both of the people who've died so far?
Oh my gosh.
What is this?
Eerie. It's the 90s.
It's the 90s.
Everyone's staying
The 90s of it all.
In the 2000s, it would be Jessica and Brittany,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah.
And Michelle.
Michelle. Yep.
Amanda, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep. Patricia Smith, affectionately known as Patty, was sweet in that effortless, corn-fed Kansas way. She was the kind of girl who said, "Oh, bless your heart," and meant it. She loved flowers, country music. She still wrote thank you cards. She was helping her own sister plan her wedding and loved working at La Bride because it made her feel like she was part of something joyful. Dress by dress, veil by veil. It was a slow day. The streets were quiet. Business was light. One bride had come in earlier with her mother to look at tiaras, but they hadn't stayed long. They've kept the store open a bit past 6 p.m., which was closing time, as a favor to a customer who needed to pick up a cummerbund for his tux. It was a kind gesture and a fateful decision. The two of them were chatting behind the counter, maybe about their weekend plans, maybe about wedding colors, maybe about something completely ordinary. That's what makes this part hard. Because what happened next didn't belong in the shop. It didn't belong in Wichita. It didn't belong anywhere. A little after 6 p.m., someone walked through the front door. A man, not a groom, not a father of the bride, not a delivery guy. He didn't ask for help with an order. He didn't mention an appointment. He didn't browse the racks or pretend to look at price tags. He didn't care about the silk shoes or the sweetheart necklines. Patricia and Patty likely assumed this was the customer they'd been waiting for. They could not have been more wrong. Instead of the grateful groom-to-be, they had let in a killer. The man drew a firearm. We'll later find out a .22 caliber pistol, according to what witnesses would describe later, and forced the two women into the back of the store. There, he shot both of them to death. Over in moments, the killer pocketed a little money from the register, almost as if it was an afterthought. Then comes sort of a lucky break in this case, if we can call anything about such a tragedy lucky. The real customer, the man who needed to pick up the cummerbund, shows up a short time later. He finds the front door unlocked and steps inside, only to come face to face with a stranger holding a gun wrapped in a wedding veil. Imagine his shock. The store is eerily quiet, and a man with a weapon stands amid what should have been a scene of happily ever afters. The armed stranger orders the customer to go with him to the back room. In a gutsy, or perhaps instinctively panicked move, the customer refuses. The gunman then simply tells him to leave. An almost surreal encounter where saying no to a killer actually worked. The customer backs out of the shop, heart pounding, and escapes with his life.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Uh-huh. It's like he had one thing in mind, one motive, one plan, and that was it.
That guy wasn't part of his MO.
Right?
Did you say he did try to take him to the back, though?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean,
He could have.
My guess is with 2 shots, he was trying to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
probably if
Yeah.
his MO is killing in the back room, though, then if this guy wouldn't go to the back room, maybe in some twisted way, he thought that he can't kill him because
Mhm.
he's
Right
not
in
in the
front.
back room.
And he
Yeah.
might have been worried about if they had security,
Could be. Yeah.
that it was out
Um,
in the front, you know?
or more likely for someone to witness it happening,
Mm-hmm.
walking by the store.
Because it is mid-April in Kansas. It's probably still light outside at 6 p.m.
Yeah. That's wild.
I know. But because he didn't go back to the back room with him, he didn't see Patricia or Patty, and he didn't know what had actually happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's,
See that on the news the next day?
well, he ends up calling police, but unfortunately it took over an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, you could assume he didn't see anybody. So maybe he thought that guy was just robbing the place,
Mm-hmm.
or
If he thought they
just
were
the
already
shock,
gone.
the fear. Maybe he thought that he didn't get there soon enough and they did close at 6. So no one was there. Maybe he thought it was just a robbery.
Yeah.
But he is the one that reported it eventually. It is bizarre, though. The killer had no problem executing 2 women, but then he lets this witness who saw him, he didn't have on a ski mask or anything, lets him just walk away. We could assume, you know, like we said, that that wasn't his MO,
Mhm.
or he didn't want, if the guy wouldn't go to the back room with him, he can't force him. He doesn't have anything with him for that.
Did he kill Patty and Patricia the same way, shoot him in the back of the head?
1 shot execution style to both.
So he probably couldn't do the same MO with this guy if he wouldn't go to the back room, couldn't get him in
Right.
that position.
Right. Not that you can understand people that do this stuff, but
No.
it seems like they get a little bit
Particular.
particular, nitpicky, a
Mhm.
little bit like
Mhm.
it has
Mm-hmm.
It's
a little
like a
bit, it has to
ritual.
be this way.
Yeah.
Yes. Ritual. That's a good word.
I was just thinking if he wants to make a name for himself, this is how he kills people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he had killed him differently, then that wouldn't have been connected.
That's a good point too.
How he wants to connect them
Yes.
in his mind, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, that's very true too. Might have taken them longer to, even though it takes a while, but
Well, when they're in different states,
Mm-hmm.
it makes it harder to connect it.
Mhm.
Especially in the 90s.
Mhm. The killer calmly leaves the boutique, disappears into the night. The stunned customer, like we said, waits over an hour before reporting what he saw. And can we blame him? He basically just stared death in the face. Not everyone's ready to dial 911 with a steady hand after that. Unfortunately, though, the 1-hour delay probably proved costly. Emergency responders arrived too late to possibly save Patricia Smith, who clung to life for a short time after the shooting.
Oh, that's
It's
sad.
So
is sad.
heartbreaking. It's kind of a what if, because maybe she could have helped give a accurate description to the sketch artist.
Mhm.
Um,
Probably had spent more time with him.
Well, and even 2 descriptions are better than 1 because you can
Mhm.
compare.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Journalist Bob Cyphers later lamented the Wichita case abounded in tragic ifs. The witness was so scared that he waited an hour to call police, time during which emergency medical aid might have saved Patricia's life. When Wichita police finally entered the bridal shop, they discovered a grim scene. Both women shot in the back room, execution style, and of course, no perpetrator in sight. But investigators do have something valuable, a witness account. After recovering from his initial shock, the witness provided details to police. He described the gunman as a slender white male with reddish or sandy hair and an off-putting stare, lazy eyelids, as it would later be described. Thanks to this witness, Wichita authorities were able to create the first composite sketch of the suspected killer. That sketch, a drawing of an unknown man with feathery red blonde hair and a cold expression, gave law enforcement a face to put on the phantom. It circulated among police, and it was shown on media reports. Wichita detective Tim Ralph, who worked the case, noted that nothing much was taken. Little to no cash. No one was sexually assaulted. The shooter's priority was pure and simple, murder, not theft. As one investigator later put it, I don't think money was the primary motive or even a motive. It was an intent to kill. It was as if this man had walked in with only one reason, and once it was done, he vanished. Quietly, almost casually. People gathered on the sidewalk in disbelief. Brides who had just tried on dresses there, same day or days earlier, stood holding their hands over their mouths. Neighbors stared. Reporters came. But no one knew what to make of it. Because this, of course, wasn't a robbery gone wrong. It wasn't a crime of passion. This felt different. Clinical, cold, intentional. But for now, that was all it was. A tragedy. A senseless murder in a sleepy Wichita bridal shop. People mourned. They brought flowers to the window displays. They wrote notes. They cried for Patricia and Patty, for their families, for the weddings the two would never see. No one yet realized this was still just the beginning. Not of grief, but of something else entirely. Something that would stretch down highways, cut through state lines, and leave a trail of blood and confusion in its wake. But that story, that comes later. If you talk to the detectives who arrived at La Bride that day, they'll tell you it was a scene that didn't make sense. Not just in the, this is horrifying kind of way, even though it was, but in that something's off and we can't name it kind of way. The shop, once so full of light and lace and future dreams, now felt like a forgotten theater set. Dresses hanging like ghosts, the radio still playing softly in the background, because of course it was. The two women had been found in the back, like we said, both shot, both left with carelessness. There was no evidence of a fight, no smashed displays, no panic written into the walls. And just like in Indianapolis 3 days earlier, there were signs of a robbery, quote unquote, but nothing that screamed urgency. The register, like we said, was left open, but not empty. There were valuables left untouched, bridal dresses, jewelry, and cash. And two women, kind, bright, respected members of the community, gone.
Question. In both murders, you mentioned that he left the cash register open and took some money. Did he take the same amount both times?
Nope.
Okay.
It's just like random.
Yeah.
Like he just wanted to make it seem like a robbery.
Yeah, kind of.
Just
Yeah.
grab a handful. Just
Because it's there.
it's
I
there,
guess.
and maybe that'll throw them off because maybe they'll be looking for a robbery type case instead of serial killer type case.
Yeah. Trying to connect the dots.
Yeah.
Still weird to have the cash register open and leave cash.
Leave it there.
Mhm.
Unless you don't need it.
You
Yeah.
just don't care
Yeah.
because you're
That's
there
not why
for
he's there.
Something
Yeah.
else. Yeah.
he's there for the murder, not the cash.
Exactly. The lead investigator stood in the middle of the shop with his arms crossed and said quietly to no one in particular, "Feels personal, but it didn't look personal. There were no history with exes, no restraining orders, no red flags. Investigators worked fast because Wichita was the kind of town where a double homicide made the air feel heavier for everyone. Officers knocked on every neighboring door. They ran checks. They looked for fingerprints, studied footprints. They even considered whether this could be some kind of hate crime. 2 women with the same first name killed together. But that didn't feel right either. It felt random. Too random. The worst kind. The police chief called a press conference. He stood stiffly behind a podium with a floral backdrop and told the public they were following all leads. But even then, you could see it in his eyes. They didn't have a lead. Not really. Back in Indianapolis, the detectives working Robin's murder read the news out of Wichita, just 700 miles away, and paused. Something about it buzzed. 2 women, shot execution style, retail store, daylight, register left open, but not empty. He circled the article with a red pen and scribbled Payless in the margin, then underlined bridal shop and wrote, "Too similar?" But when he called up Wichita PD to ask if they noticed any parallels, the guy on the other end of the line was polite, but not biting. "Could be a coincidence," he said. "We've got no real suspects. You?" "Nope," the detective replied. Maybe just a hunch." He hung up, let it sit, because the truth is, cops see a lot of weird stuff. Weird doesn't always mean connected. Weird doesn't always mean serial.
Jenna, how far apart were these?
3 days.
Oh, okay. I was thinking someone could have seen it out of Indianapolis and been a copycat as well, but that's kind of close for something like that.
You're not wrong, though.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
So I did pull it up on Google Maps.
Oh, okay.
Don't yell at me.
Sorry, I love you.
We don't know.
It's about a 9-hour drive.
Okay.
700 miles?
Yeah. I pull it up in Google Maps, which I would have said 9 hours and 42 minutes
Not that far.
with tolls, but that's the fastest.
And what road do you take?
I don't know. But you also cross time zones.
Mm-hmm. What's the main road?
About 66.
35.
These feel like leading questions, Jenna.
Nope, and they're both wrong. Okay.
I-35.
Nope.
To the I-435.
Nope.
To
Those are
the
old. They would be.
81.
Nope.
To the US 69 North. To
No.
College Boulevard.
No.
Down
Our
to
freeways
the
now?
50 East. Down to the 435. To the 70.
Okay.
There's
Well,
got to be a
Jenna
different
asked.
I know.
or roundabout way, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe that is. I can see it in her face.
No one wanted to believe that someone was driving through the heartland of America, walking into little quiet shops and shooting strangers for reasons no one could understand. At least, not yet.
But they were.
By the time late April rolled around, spring had finally started to settle into Indiana. The days were warming, the trees were blooming, and the cold gray that had clung to March was finally shaking loose. Back in the Hoser State, about 70 miles west of Indianapolis, on a narrow stretch of Lafayette Avenue in Terre Haute, tucked between a dry cleaner and a faded corner barbershop, stood a quiet little storefront called Sylvia's Ceramics. 40-year-old Michael McCown is tending his mother's store, Sylvia's Ceramic Supply, on a typical day. Michael, he carried on the legacy for his mother, who had retired. He wasn't the artsy type at first glance, more jeans and boots than smock and sandals. He looked like someone you'd expect to find under a car hood or coaching a little league game, not standing next to a display of ceramic frogs and hand-painted ashtrays. But that was Michael's charm. He was exactly who you didn't expect, and exactly the kind of person small towns are lucky to have. He worked hard, he lived alone, he helped his aging parents, and he ran his mother's shop with pride. People knew him, they liked him. He'd play country music low in the background while he worked. The shop smelled like paint, a little like dust, but always like home. Mick is a music lover and a talented guitarist, a professional musician who took over his mom's store when she retired, his sister later said. He's also a tall man, 6'4", who happens to wear his brown hair in a ponytail. On this day, Mick was alone in the shop, likely organizing stock or helping the occasional customer who drops in to browse ceramic supplies. On April 27th, 1992, it was a normal Monday afternoon. He was in the store alone. Sylvia was at home that day, and business was slow. Ceramic sales always dipped a little bit after Easter and before Mother's Day. Sometime around 4 p.m., the bell above the door chimed. A man walked in. Michael looked up. He might have said hello, might have offered a smile, might have started to ask if the guy needed help picking out a gift, but he never got the chance. We don't know if any words were actually exchanged, but we know what happened next. Michael Mick McCown is shot to death, executed in cold blood in the middle of his own store. He didn't even, we don't think, have time to turn around. Evidence suggests Mick was shot from behind, possibly while kneeling to stock a lower shelf. The shooter took Mick's wallet and maybe $50 or less from the cash register and slipped away unnoticed.
So this one wasn't in a back room.
Mm-mm.
It's in the middle of the store.
Yep.
But still from behind.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sad.
It's so sad. This case, man.
I wonder, it just seems so random.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder how many stores he goes into, or does he watch? Or does he go into a store if other people are there? He just looks around and leaves. I'm curious.
Me too.
We don't know.
Yeah. It's very random.
Mm-hmm.
I bet it
Especially
is.
where each person isn't the same demographic.
Right. You know, like I said, he did wear his hair in a ponytail and they think he was crouching down.
So maybe they thought he
Mhm.
thought it was a girl.
Yep.
Mm.
He's the only male victim.
Mm.
But the stores are vastly different. You
Yeah.
know, a Payless, a bridal store, and now we have a ceramic store.
I wonder if that is what you're saying, that he is walking into stores and then leaving if it's not the right person he's looking, type of person that he's looking for, or if there's other people in the store he's leaving. I wonder if that is.
Because how would
How
he
he-
know it's empty unless he is sitting there watching all day?
Yeah. Or that it's slow
Mm-hmm.
or things like that. I bet he is just walking in, looking around, leaving if it's not a good environment. I don't know if that's
Right.
Well,
no,
yeah.
that's
I don't know.
exactly it, though.
if it's not what he's looking for, then he leaves and walks into a
Because-
different store.
We don't know if he went into 10 stores before this one
And how many days he walked into stores looking for somebody that
because the first ones were the
know.
8th and the 11th, and then this one isn't till the 27th.
Yeah. So if he's driving and just stopping in small towns and checking out different stores and not finding what he's looking for, then moves on, maybe.
Mhm. Right?
They're also all on weekdays and at like retail stores.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like you have to assume that they might be less busy than going on like a weekend or something like that.
Yeah, that's true too. 2 of them were basically during the day. The other one is when it's already supposed to be closed.
Yeah.
Both times when it could be slow.
Mm-hmm.
By the time customers or anyone else discovers Mick's body, the killer is long gone. There were no eyewitnesses reported in this case. No one saw the suspect come or go. In an instant, a peaceful store became another crime scene and a family was shattered. My God, he was 6'4". He didn't have the body of a woman, Mick's sister Teresa would later say, incredulously, because by now, investigators suspected the killer was targeting women and that Mick might have been a tragic case of mistaken identity. The store's name, Sylvia's, and Mick's ponytail, plus if he was down on the ground stalking something, he wouldn't have seen that he was 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
All of these things could have made the killer assume a woman was working that day. If that's true, it's a cruel twist. Mick wasn't even supposed to be the type of victim the murderer wanted, but the killer shot him anyways. As Teresa aptly put it, you don't expect anybody you know to be murdered by a serial killer, let alone your own brother while he's doing inventory in mom's shop. He was found that evening by a customer who stopped by after work. The scene was almost pristine, just like the others. The cash register had been touched but not cleaned out. Nothing was stolen. Nothing seemed out of place. The ceramic shelf stood untouched. The little frogs, the ashtrays, they all smiled up from their displays. The police were called, the yellow tape went up. And for a second time, almost in the same town, within the span of weeks, someone walked into a small business in broad daylight and murdered the person inside with no warning and no motive. The officers who responded knew Robin's case was still fresh, still unsolved, but this, a male victim, a ceramic shop, different day, different setup. So again, people asked, was this a robbery, a personal vendetta? Could the two be unrelated?
It's almost like he's getting enough money for gas.
Yes, that's
just enough to get to wherever he wants to go next.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
Look at that.
terrifying too.
Yeah.
In Indianapolis, the detectives who'd been sitting on the hunch that maybe Robin's case and the one in Wichita were related, he read the headline about Michael McCown and said, this time out loud, no way this is a coincidence. 4 shootings, all at small, locally owned shops, all during daylight hours, a single shot to each, really nothing taken. And each time the killer had vanished like smoke. Still, there was no profile, no name, no vehicle, no security footage, and really just the one witness. And, in Indiana, no witnesses, just questions.
It seems all of these are happening together so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So there can't be a lot of planning before
No.
each one, unless he mapped this all out months ago and then comes back.
I don't think
But
so, but
it doesn't seem like it,
possible. No, it doesn't.
especially with only 3 days in between Robin and Patricia and Patty.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of time to do planning.
No. And they're so far apart. I
Yeah.
mean, distance-wise.
Mhm.
If your MO is just retail stores, women, back of the head, something like that, you don't really need that much planning, I would think. You just need to almost find the opportunity to carry out something like that.
True.
I think opportunistic is
Mm-hmm.
a good word for this. And I almost wonder if there was 1 or 2 in between, because
Yeah.
the next one happens just 5 days later. And so they're kind of clustered, right?
Yeah.
So somewhere, probably on a highway that ran through the middle of the country, a man that really no one could describe was gone. And just like the first time, the silence didn't last long. When the Terre Haute police got the call that Michael had been shot inside Sylvia's Ceramics, there was a moment, a pause that wasn't just shock, it was recognition. Not again. At first, they tried to treat it by the book. New scene, new victim, clean slate. But somehow they knew that it wasn't. Because just like the others, no forced entry, because he came during the day, no ransacking, the cash register tampered with, but barely. And again, no one heard a thing. Michael hadn't been known to have enemies. He lived a quiet life, helping his parents, running the store. Why would someone kill him? It didn't feel right. It didn't look right. And more than that, it looked familiar. The detective picked up the phone. First, he called Indianapolis. Robin, he said into the receiver, shoe store, single female, shot once, daylight, robbery maybe staged. There was a pause, a breath, then, yeah, the detective said, that's our girl. Next, he looked at Patricia and Patty, called in favor after favor, compared notes, and somewhere between that second cup of burnt coffee and his third legal pad of scribbles, something clicked. 4 murders, 3 towns, 3 storefronts, nothing linking the victims, everything linking the method. He drove down to Sylvia's Ceramics the next morning before the scene had been cleared, walked slowly through the aisles, looked at the rows of still unfinished figurines, the tiny ceramic kittens, the blank white coffee mugs waiting for someone's hand, the smell still of dust and paint in the air, the radio left on again, just like the others. He walked to the front window and stared out at the parking lot. Then he said quietly, "This isn't a robbery." And he wasn't the only one starting to think that way. By now, 3 strikingly similar shootings had occurred in a relatively short span, all within less than a month. We have Indianapolis, Wichita, and Terre Haute, all along the I-70 corridor, all in small shops, all victims shot with a .22 caliber firearm, again, during daylight, early evening, and in each case, the perpetrator vanished without a trace. It was becoming hard for law enforcement to ignore the pattern. Terre Haute is only a few hours' drive from Indianapolis, so Indiana investigators quickly compared notes, and again, reaching out to Wichita as well. Ballistic tests soon confirmed what some detectives feared. The bullet casings from Indianapolis, Terre Haute, Wichita, they all matched. This same gun had been used at all 3 scenes. In other words, these weren't local one-offs. They were dealing with a single serial killer traveling across state lines. So you were right, serial killer.
Called it.
The realization that they were all connected set off alarm bells in multiple jurisdictions. Imagine being a detective in late April 1992, piecing this all together. Someone is literally driving hundreds of miles on America's interstates, picking random targets and murdering innocent people with no clear motive. The FBI is called in and a multi-state alert goes out. The media hadn't fully caught on yet, but law enforcement quietly begins coordinating. An informal task force starts to form as agencies in Indiana, Kansas, and now Missouri, since Wichita's right next door, trade information. They know the killer's out there somewhere, possibly on the move again. The big question is, where will he strike next?
And all retail store people quit.
Yes.
Seriously.
Oh my gosh. Can you
How's-
imagine?
No.
I wouldn't ever want to be alone.
No.
But Patricia and Patty weren't alone, you
Yeah,
know?
that's true.
I wouldn't want to go to work.
No.
Well, here's all my sick days.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh. That'd be so scary.
Yes.
You know how many times I worked at the hotel by myself? 10 o'clock at night
Scary.
in the back folding towels just by myself.
Nope.
Never again.
It's scary.
Yeah.
I always hated that when I went home early from work, like in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m. walking out to my car.
Yeah.
Didn't like
Oh,
that.
yeah. No.
I got stalked in the parking lot once.
Scary.
Yeah. Hate that.
Me too.
It was a Sunday afternoon, warm, quiet, and impossibly average in St. Charles, Missouri, a suburb just west of St. Louis. The kind of place where lawns were tidy, neighborhood kids still rode bikes to the corner store, and Sundays were for church, chores, and slowing down. The Boot Village store sat near the edge of a strip mall. Not high-end, not sketchy, just local. Western wear, cowboy boots, a few racks of jeans, the kind of store where people browsed, slow, and bought for function, where the guy behind the counter might offer to help you find your size while you tried on work boots. That day, the guy behind the counter was Nancy Kitzmiller. She was 24, bright, sweet, and full of sarcasm in the way that made people instantly like her. She wasn't from St. Charles. She was just working there for the weekend, filling in. A favor to the manager. One of those sure why not decisions you don't think twice about. She had plans, big ones. She had just finished college and was gearing up to start a new job in Kansas City. This was supposed to be a quick stop, a short shift, and in between. The store was quiet that day. Church was letting out. Most people weren't shopping for boots. And again, Nancy wasn't even supposed to work that day. She had agreed to cover a shift for someone who had wanted the day off. By all accounts, Nancy was bright. She was hardworking. She opened the shop at noon. For a while, everything was normal. A few customers came and went. Then, at some point before 2:30 p.m., a man walks in, alone. Nancy, ever the helpful one, probably smiled, probably asked if he was looking for anything in particular. She might have joked about the weather or offered to check in the back for a size. And just like before anything could even register, he shot her one time to the back of the head. Just like Robin, just like Patricia and Patty, just like Michael. There was no sign of a struggle. The register was opened again, but like before, it wasn't cleaned out. Shelves were untouched, the racks still full. And the killer? Gone. Customers entering Boot Village around 2:30 got a horrific shock. They found Nancy's body in the back room of the store, shot in the head, just like the others.
Sad. I can't imagine being the one to find them.
So awful.
Not for any of these scenes.
No.
Police were called immediately. When investigators arrived, they noted the familiar signs, the small amount of cash missing, and a .22 caliber shell casing left behind. Unfortunately, no one heard the gunshots. Perhaps not surprising if a .22 was used, since it can sound like a pop, or maybe the killer used a makeshift suppressor.
I was wondering that with the one for Patricia and Patty where he had the veil wrapped around the gun.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking. A silencer.
Yep. A makeshift one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. St. Charles police do get one witness account. A shopper in the area recalls seeing Nancy with a male customer shortly before what they assume was the time of her murder. This man was the only person around at that critical time. And thanks to his tip, police work up another composite sketch of a suspect. The description matches the earlier accounts. A thin white man with dull red or sandy blonde hair, around 5'7" to 5'9". He's seen browsing with Nancy moments before they think she was killed. But all of this, why? This time, though, Missouri detectives didn't have to work in a vacuum. Not anymore, because this time the call came to them from Indiana. And on the line was a voice saying, "I think we're looking for the same man." It's now undeniable that a serial killer is prowling the I-70 corridor. 4 attacks in 4 different cities, all within a month. The press started to connect the dots too. Headlines in Missouri and Kansas blare news of a possible interstate killer after Nancy's murder. Task force meetings are hastily arranged. St. Charles detective Donald Stepp later recounted how his department was flooded with information. 10 drawers of files containing thousands of names of possible suspects or leads were compiled, all in an effort to find this roaming murderer. But in early May 1992, despite police finally realizing what they're dealing with, the killer is one step ahead, and he's not done yet. Nancy's grieving parents would, in later years, keep fighting to remind the public of the case. "Every single day we think about her," Carol said in a 2016 interview from First Alert 4. Dawn urged anyone with knowledge to come forward. "There's no reason not to say anything. It benefits society, and it would benefit us." Their daughter's life was stolen for no reason other than a stranger's whims, and they, like the other victim's family, have had to live with decades of unanswered questions. Nancy was a young woman with plans and dreams, doing someone a favor by covering a shift, and in that instant, she became the 5th victim of this faceless serial killer. For investigators, the pressure is mounting. Multiple police departments across Indiana, Kansas, and Missouri are now fully aware that a single perpetrator is responsible for these murders. Okay, this is where we're ending part 1 of the I-70 killer.
No, I still need more info.
I know, I'm sorry. It's just too much. There's too much. I can't do it all in one episode. And I don't want to.
Fine.
I want to give you all the details, and that just takes me too long.
Okay, I forgive you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let us know what you think of part 1, and part 2 will be out before you know it. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. If you have any feedback, we'd love if you'd share it. You can email us, crimeclueless@gmail.com. If you would be so sweet, we would love if you'd follow us on our social media platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, etc. And all of them were at Crime Clueless. And we'd love to hear from you, connect, share your thoughts, theories, feedback, especially before we release part 2. I'd love to hear what you think. If you liked today's episode, please take a moment to rate, review, or share our podcast. Your support means the world to us. You can find Crime Clueless on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, YouTube, and all major streaming platforms. We'll be back with part 2 soon. And in the meantime, remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murderers.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.